For centuries, scientists have argued that psychopaths are made and not born, but these cold-hearted and murderous children beg to differ. Here are the world's youngest serial killers.
Robert Bever's defense team aimed to limit emotion and remembrance of the victims.
The now 16-year-old girl is currently in close custody at the Alberta Hospital in Edmonton.
Witnesses say a lone gunman walked onto the campus at Stockton's Cleveland Elementary School and opened fire with a machine gun.
Voices were talking to me. You need to make a sacrifice, or we're going to come and get you. You need to do it. And I saw him. It was laying on the grass.
Now, 2 days past her 20th birthday, Alyssa Bustamante is still recognizable as the teenager arrested in the fall of 2009.
Number 1. Amarjeet Sada. Sada was born in 1998 in Bihar, India. Not much is said about his childhood, because he didn't have one. But by the age of 8, Sada had a body count of 3. Sada claimed his first victim in 2006 at the tender age of 7. She was his 6-year-old female cousin. He hit her with a brick and strangled her. Now nobody knows if they had a fight while playing or his thirst for blood got the better of him. But what we do know is that his parents found out about his crime and hid it from everyone, including the victim's father, Sada's uncle. A decision that proved consequential for them in the long run. In 2007, Sada ended his 8-month-old baby sister's life by hitting her on the head with a brick and strangling her, just like he had done with his cousin. Somehow, Sada's parents thought giving him a good beating would quench his thirst for blood. It didn't. Later that year, Sada ended the life of a 6-month-old baby girl named Khushbu. According to Khushbu's mother, she left her baby sleeping at a primary school while she went to do some chores. When she came back, she couldn't find her baby. She made a frantic complaint to the police, and a search was launched in order to find Khushbu. A few hours later, Sada happily admitted his crime to the police and led them to the shallow grave, where he buried Khushbu. He joyfully admitted to hitting her with a brick and strangling her, which is exactly what he did to his sister and cousin. He was only 8. The policemen working the case said he looked so happy and proud of what he did. It creeped them out so much that they immediately called in a psychiatrist to check Sada out. The psychiatrist they called in clearly said he is a sadist who derives pleasure from inflicting pain. But according to Indian law, a child cannot be jailed or sentenced to death, so Sada was detained at a children's home in Munger in the town of Bihar, where he stayed till he was 18. He was released in 2016, and no one knows where he is today. Which means a 26-year-old psychopath with zero empathy is roaming around freely. Sada's crimes may have been kept secret by his parents, but really, he was alone in his crimes. That's not the case of the Bever brothers, though. Robert and Michael had each other. Robert Bever, 18, and his younger brother Michael Bever, 16, were born 2 years apart to David and April Bever. Their parents were highly conservative Christians who went as far as homeschooling their children and putting CCTV cameras in their rooms. Apparently, they tried sending Robert to school, but he was assaulted, so he was pulled out and homeschooled, along with his younger siblings Michael, Crystal, Daniel, Christopher, Victoria, and Autumn. Given how close in age Robert and Michael are, they become friends and start sharing similar interests, including the very, very dark ones. After watching the movie Rampage and hearing reports of mass shootings, they got inspired and planned to go on a killing spree of their own. The problem was, they needed ammunition. Robert, who got a job at 16, decided to fund their sinister plan with his savings. After ordering the ammunition online, the boys had one more problem: how to receive their weapons without any interruption. They knew their family would interrupt, so they devised a sick plan to wipe out their family before the weapons arrived. The plan was to wipe out the family as they slept and take 2 videos of it. One for the police and the other for YouTube. It was to happen at midnight on the 22nd of July, 2015. Unfortunately, that fateful night, while the pair were suiting up to go on a rampage, Crystal, 13, walked in on them and saw the knives on their beds and got startled. But Robert lured her in, saying he had something on his laptop to show her. The little girl trusted her big brother and went in, but he slit her throat from the back. This caused her to scream and run out of the house. April sees what happens and tries to fight them while screaming as loud as she could, but is murdered by Robert. He then ordered Michael to drag Crystal back into the house, which he did, but Crystal smartly played dead, and they believed her. The two younger children, Christopher, 7, and Victoria, 5, locked themselves up in the bathroom, but Michael pretended to be in danger too, and begged them to let him in. They did, and sadly, he killed them. Daniel ran to their father's office, barricaded himself, and called 911, but Michael again pretended to be in danger and was let in. This time he came with Robert. They smashed the phone and murdered their brother. Their father, who had slept through most of the commotions, woke up to the gruesome scene and charged at the boys. Sadly, Robert stabs him in the chest. After they murdered their father, they heard a knock at the door and ran. It was the police. They saved Crystal, though she was in critical condition, and found Autumn, too, unharmed. Crystal later identified her brothers as the assailants. The police found them hiding in a bush behind their house. Robert, after being caught, gladly admitted to his crimes, but Michael tried denying and shifting the blame on Robert. They were both tried as adults and given life sentences. Jasmine Richardson is the next family annihilator on our list. She planned and executed the assassination of her family in April of 2006. It is important to note that she was only 12 at the time of the crime. In 1994, in Medicine Hat, southeast Alberta, Canada, a healthy baby girl was born to Mark and Deborah Richardson. In 1998, the Richardsons were blessed with a baby boy named Tyler Jacob Richardson. The Richardsons seemed to be in a happy, complete family. Their girl was an intelligent and obedient girl who loved pink, and their son a funny kid who made lots of people laugh. Unfortunately, when Jasmine turned 12, she took a dark turn, both figuratively and literally dark. She started wearing darker makeup and clothes and was into dark music and vampires. She started disrespecting teachers and her parents and just seemed meaner. It only took a turn for the worst when she met and started dating 23-year-old Jeremy Steinke. Steinke told her he was a 300-year-old werewolf. Jasmine's parents were not happy when they found out. They cut off all her access to the internet and wouldn't let her speak to see or meet Steinke. This infuriated their already rebellious daughter. She managed to reach out to Jeremy via the family computer and initiated murder talks. In one of their conversations, she wrote, "I have this plan. It begins with me killing them and ends with me living with you." Steinke replies, "I want to slit their throats. They will regret the stuff they've done. Finally, there shall be silence. Their blood shall be my payment." On the evening of April 23, 2006, Deborah heard a noise and went out to check what it was. A masked man had broken in. He attacked her the minute he saw her stabbing her 12 times. Mark heard the commotion and went to check and found his wife being stabbed. He picked up a weapon and lunged at the attacker, but ended up being stabbed 24 times. Steinke, the killer, comes and sees Jasmine hiding with her brother in the room. Jasmine proceeds to murder her brother by stabbing him 5 times and slitting his throat and then drinking his blood. The police first thought her family was murdered, and she was taken. But when they found a drawing illustrating the murders in her locker, they knew she was an accomplice. Jasmine and Steinke were later apprehended. Jasmine got 10 years due to her age, and Steinke got 3 life sentences. Brenda Spencer is joining our list of murderous children because she aimed a gun at an elementary school and opened fire when she was just 16. Brenda Ann Spencer was born on April 3, 1962, to Nadine and Edward Spencer. Nadine divorced Edward because she found he was cheating on her with several women, abandoning her with a sexually abusive father. Brenda was described by psychiatrists as severely depressed. They advised her to be institutionalized, an advice her father didn't take. Instead, he got her a gun for Christmas, so she'll shoot herself. Using this gun, Brenda opened fire at the elementary school across from her home on January 29, 1979. She ended the lives of Principal Burton Ragg, 53, and custodian Mike Suchar, 56. She wounded several students and a police officer. After 36 shots from Brenda, she eventually stopped by the police. She barricaded herself in her house and only came out after she was promised Burger King by the police negotiator. she got a life sentence for her crime. A lot of people argued her age, upbringing, and background caused her actions, and she deserves a second chance. She has been studied extensively by psychiatrists since. Edmund Emil Kemper III is another murderous child who has been extensively studied by psychiatrists. He was born on the 18th of December 1948 to Clennell Kemper and Edmund Kemper Jr. In the early stages of his life, Edmund showed antisocial behaviors such as torturing and killing animals, lying, and beheading his sister's dolls. His mother's abuse of both his father and himself didn't help his case. Edmund Kemper Jr. said he preferred being on the suicide missions he went on during World War II than being married to her. Eventually, they divorced, and Edmund Kemper III was forced to live with his mother. She amped up the abuse and even went as far as locking him in the basement. At 14, Edmund Kemper III ran away to go live with his father. But his father was already married with a stepson and sent him to live with his paternal grandparents. Unfortunately, his grandmother was just as abusive as his mother, and on August 27, 1964, when Kemper was just 15, he murdered his grandmother with his hunting gun after a bad fight and did the same to his grandfather because he did not want him to see what he had done. He turned himself into the police, served his time, was released, murdered 7 other women, and turned himself in after killing his mother. He requested the death penalty, but was given life without the possibility of parole instead. He decided to donate himself for psychiatric research because he liked the thrill of it. James Fairweather, born 5th of August 1998 in Britain, is another child serial killer. At age 15, he committed his first murder and committed the second at age 17. He was severely bullied for his undiagnosed dyslexia and prominent ears. In 2012, he was badly affected by the death of his grandmother. He started off as a petty thief robbing someone at knife point for a cigarette. He was sentenced to a year of supervision for this. He went on to claim the life of James Atfield, a 33-year-old father of 5 who suffered brain damage from an accident. The poor man was just lying on the grass in the park, but that didn't stop James from stabbing him over 100 times. 2 years later, he ended the life of 31-year-old Arabic student Almanea. She was on her way to school when he attacked her and stabbed her in the abdomen and ears. He exposed himself after a bad argument with his friend. He threatened to kill the way he did his last 2 victims. This brave boy reported James to the police. James was arrested and given a life sentence and is expected to spend at least 27 years in jail. Alyssa Daleen Bustamante. She was born on the 28th of January 1994. On the 21st of October 2009, Alyssa saw 9-year-old Elizabeth Olton walking home and decided to kill her. She lured Elizabeth into the woods, stabbed her, and slit her throat, and went back home to write about what she did in her journal. "I just killed somebody. To be honest, it's not that bad once you go ahead and do it." Elizabeth had promised her mother she'll be home for dinner, and it was dinner time, and Elizabeth was a no-show. Her mother called the police, and a search was launched. Using geolocation, she was found in the woods between her house and Alyssa's house. The police searched Alyssa's home, and along with some physical evidence, they found her diary. However, Alyssa was nowhere to be found. Using geolocation, Alyssa was captured and brought for questioning. She was tried as an adult and got a 30-year sentence. Eric M. Smith is another thrill killer. Born on the 22nd of January 1980, he's known for the heinous crime he committed at 13. On August 2nd, 1993, Smith was riding his bike at the local park where he saw 4-year-old Derek Robbie and decided to kill him. He lured him into a nearby bush and tortured him to death. He strangled him and hit him with a brick. He also sodomized him with a small stick and then put Kool-Aid on his wounds. When Robbie's mother came to get him from the park, she couldn't find him. She got in contact with the police, and 4 hours later, Robbie's body was found. Smith was later identified as the killer because of his distinct hair and glasses. He was tried as an adult and sentenced to life in prison. In October of 2021, he was released on parole. TJ Lane. I'm sure most of you have heard of him, even in passing. He is just a monster. He's a 17-year-old who did a mass shooting at the Chardon High School in Ohio, USA. Just a monster. TJ was born Thomas Lane III on the 19th of September 1994. His parents were Thomas Lane Jr. and Sarah A. Nolan. They were both abusive and lost custody of TJ to his grandmother. TJ's classmates said he kept to himself. No friends, no clubs, no cliques, no anything. On the 27th of February, 2012, TJ opened fire at his schoolmates in the cafeteria using a Ruger MK11 .22 caliber semi-automatic handgun. He killed Daniel Parmertor, 16, Russell King Jr., 17, and Demetrius Hewlin, 16. He severely injured Nick Walczak, permanently crippling him. Joy Rickers and Nate Miller got minor injuries. He was held down by schoolteacher Joseph Ricci and football coach Frank Hall. On February 26, 2013, during his sentencing, TJ took off his dress shirt to show off his white t-shirt with a bold "Killer" written on it. He smiled and smirked throughout the court hearing, and after his 3 consecutive life sentences, he turned to the families of the victims and said, "This hand that pulled the trigger that killed your sons now masturbates in its memory. Fuck all of you." He did try to escape, but was recaptured after 24 hours. Michael Hernandez murdered his best friend when they were both 14 by stabbing him over 40 times and slitting his throat. By all accounts, Hernandez had a very normal childhood, aside from his disturbing eating habits. Somehow he developed a fascination with serial killers and planned his first 2 murder. The victims were supposed to be Jaime Guff and his other friend Martin. He invited them both to the bathroom where he planned to kill them, but Martin was a no-show in the bathroom, so Hernandez settled only for Jaime. After gruesomely stabbing Jaime, he accidentally left some blood on his shirt. His teacher saw it and called the police. He was interrogated, his diary was read, and he was given a life sentence. After trying to plead his case severally and losing, Hernandez died in prison from obesity at age 31. Craig Price, who was born on the 11th of October 1973, is an American serial killer who started gruesomely murdering people at the age of 13. On July 27, 1987, he broke into 27-year-old Rebecca Spencer's home, took a knife from her kitchen, and stabbed her 58 times. 2 years later, he broke into the Heaton home while high on LSD and murdered Joan and her 2 daughters, Jennifer and Melissa Heaton. The police determined it had to have been a neighbor. After finding defensive wounds on Craig, he became their prime suspect. They took him in for questioning, and he eventually confessed when he was cornered. He even made fun of the sounds the victims made as they died. He was sent to a juvenile facility in Rhode Island. He was on his best behavior and wouldn't talk to anyone about his crime to avoid harsher punishment. But after a few petitions and protests, he was sent to prison. He then became his true self again, attacking police officers and inmates, and eventually killing one of his fellow inmates. It has increased his sentence. I think today's story is proof that there's evil everywhere. Children are supposed to be the most innocent and protected group of people. However, these children show no mercy with how they pick their victims, and they execute their plans. The saddest and scariest part is the lack of remorse. If these people are allowed back into society, would they show us simpletons any sympathy? What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments.